All right, guys, I'm set up, and what we're going to do first is we've got a continuation of the cryptid victims. These are supposed victims of some type of cryptid attacks, and the majority of these, what I've concluded out of it is that the majority of them are supposed Dogman attacks, and this is where there's reports of these people being attacked. And what I'm going to do is the same what we've done before. Sorry about all the noise. I'm just trying to get this set because there are pictures, and I will be showing you the pictures just to honor the people that that these things have happened to. All right, so we're going to get on with it. Petey, come over here, buddy. Come here. Hey, come here. Come over here. There you go. Sit over here by me so I can keep my eyes on you. I know. Hold on. He's smelling the microphone. I got it in my shirt. Nothing gets past you, does it, bud? All right. Here we go. The date is August 15th of 2022. Rossi, Iowa, which is Clay County, near the intersection of very rural 450th Street and 200th Avenue. 43-year-old Mindy Nelson Keep dead. A passerby man saw her body lying in a ditch with her motorcycle and first thought she had died in a motorcycle accident. The man did not go close due to her Great Dane dogs roaming nearby. Her farm was close by where she lived. Authorities thought she had sustained multiple dog bites. Autopsy reports said death by multiple dog bites from all 5 of her Great Danes. All 5 Great Danes were euthanized. Details about why they would attack and bite to death their owner on her moving motorcycle a short distance from her farm, causing her to crash into the ditch, is not being released to the public. All 5 Great Danes were not checked for any of her DNA or blood on them after euthanization. If the Great Danes were responsible, why weren't they checked for her DNA? The officials refused to answer any more questions relating to the dogs. Obviously, they already knew what killed her, and it wasn't the dogs. Her family said she was a kind, caring, and loving mother and grandmother. Why would a caring dog owner be attacked by all 5 of her dogs? And why would they wait till she got on her motorcycle, left her farm, and was partially down the road moving along? Is this another case of a dogman watching her leave her farm only to ambush her on the road once she left the safety of her home? They can easily pull people off vehicles, and we have testimony of those who have survived a dogman attempting to do so. And as usual, though no one saw anything, her dogs are blamed and killed. Her friends said it was not her dogs. In fact, she went on to say that strange things were going on in the area, and Mindy's Great Danes would not go out at night in fear, and Mindy would take her dogs with her when she walked because of what was in the woods. And guys, this is, I'm going to show you a picture of 43-year-old Mindy Nelson Keep Danes, but all 5 were blamed in her death, unfortunately. And that's Mindy and her dogs. I'm sure that's just one of her dogs. They'll sure do DNA tests and know if it's a human killing someone. And this is the intersection where Mindy was pulled off her moving motorcycle and bitten to death. There's the intersection. Guys, I'm sorry about the shadowing from the trees. And this is the attack location of rural Mindy Nelson Keeps Farm. Neighbors said strange things had been happening with something hiding in nearby patches of woods. All right, now we're getting on to the next one. I know it's up and down, but the camera's a little ways from me. Oh, let me put all these pictures back. Okay. The date is August 14th of 2022 in Gritney, Florida, which is Holmes County. Bonifay Gritney Road. That's not far from my home. That is not far at all. 30 minutes, maybe. 69-year-old Shirley Faye Johnson was dead, mutilated. She was walking home on Bonifay Gritney Road after visiting with her son when 3 violent dogs ran across her path. It's not clear whether this was at night or during the day. Her body was discovered by a bystander a full day after the attack. It's also not clear where by the road she was found. The sheriff said the coroner's office reported there were over 100 dog bites all over her body, with some of the body parts missing. Neighbors said the dogs in the area were not really aggressive and it showed no signs of violence. The sheriff said no charges would be filed against any neighbor's dogs, against any of the neighbor dog owners, as there was no evidence linking the neighbors to her death, but their 3 dogs were euthanized anyway, and as usual, no swabs or DNA testing was done on the dogs' dead bodies, or to check for Shirley's blood on them, or in their stomachs. Why? Because the sheriff already knew it wasn't the dogs that killed her. A cover-up, complete, and the authorities would not answer any more questions. It's horrible. And this is a picture of 69-year-old Shirley Faye Johnson. And I do remember seeing that in the news, actually. As I'm not sure if y'all can see that or not. I'm trying to keep it from blowing around. We got a little wind today. That's Shirley Faye. That's horrible. And this is the Bonifay Gritney Road in Gritney, Florida, where Shirley Faye Johnson was attacked. Gritney is just a small rural area of Bonifay. Yep, I do remember that one. Let me put this up and we're going to get on. We're going to finish up. You guys remember Randy's encounters with the Sasquatch from childhood. Let me get it out. And it's rather long, but you guys, if you followed Kyle Connolly on Encrypted Connections, then you would have seen the interview he did with Randy. This is pretty long, so I'm gonna probably have to leave this article in the notebook, and then once we get it done, whatever pictures are here, then I'll show you the pictures at the end. Yeah, I'm not going to be able to read that one. I need my glasses for sure. Oh, that stick keeps catching my leg. Here, Petey. There you go, buddy. Okay, let me get my glasses out. The print's the same on the other one, and for some reason I can't hardly see this one. It looks to be the same print. Strange. Well, it's definitely better. Good boy. He's eating the stick I just gave him. All right. And this is titled An Incredible Bigfoot Experience from Lower Michigan, Randy's Story from 1977. And this is part 2. I've shared the part 1 on Kyle's channel in Encrypted Connection. I did share the part 1. He's the one that interviewed Randy. He done an interview with him where Randy explained the story, and then I was invited to come on with Kyle, and I shared part 1 over there. So if you're not part of Encrypted Connection with Kyle Connolly, jump over there and subscribe. Back him up and listen to Randy's story out of Randy's mouth. Listen to him tell it. It's an incredible story. All right. The year is from August to September of 1977, and the location was Lower Michigan. The information source was multiple eyewitness testimony, including an autopsy, police sightings, and shooting of one of the creatures, photos, local TV news segments of a missing child, National Guard presence with investigation, and Men in Black harassment, which included confiscation of evidence. The preface reads, "The story you are about to hear may be disturbing or too much for some to hear, but one thing is for certain. This is Randy's truth, and there's no doubt about that. There are 2 distinct possibilities. The witness is crazy, or it really happened. After hearing the events, details, and the reliability of Randy, one can easily come to the conclusion that this really happened. If anything is gained, it is a better understanding of these creatures and the nature of their existence. The events occurred in 1977 when Randy was 10 years old." And this is part 2. Part 1 is on Encrypted Connection. Please jump over and either listen to Randy tell the entire story, or you can listen to where I shared Randy's story, the part 1 of it. The barn visitor becomes aggressive. And they called this Sasquatch, this juvenile, Mike the orangutan. And so when you hear the story of Mike, that was what they named this Sasquatch. All right, Mike the orangutan repeated the ape noise and his eyes turned red. His demeanor turned aggressive and he screamed. Randy thought he was about to die. It was during this aggressive display that Randy learned these creatures have an anatomical feature not heard of before. He described them as tusk-like teeth that elongate from the top rear molars, and they do so consistently with the mouth opening. It's involuntary. As the mouth opens, the upper rear tusks protrude, and as the mouth closes, they retract. Poor little 10-year-old Randy no longer thought this was an orangutan pet, or at least not a friendly orangutan, and he went to flee, but made it to the loft door and was trying to unlatch it when he felt Mike grab his ankle and started pulling Randy towards him. Randy kicked him in the face. Looking back, Randy thinks that Mike the Bigfoot still thought they were playing like the noise mimicking game. But Randy took it one step further and beat his chest, which the creature took as an act of aggression. It's still not clear whether Randy was in danger of his life, but it was a dangerous situation nonetheless. Normal actions to this creature could prove deadly to a human, which has been documented in other large primates. Humans are much less capable in contrast with larger primates such as gorillas. Randy thinks Mike the Bigfoot was only play fighting. Randy started to scream for his life, at which point Mike the Bigfoot pounced on Randy, holding his arms down, and made a strange hissing sound that he claims had a paralyzing effect. At close range, Randy was completely unable to move, not because he was pinned down, but because of this infrasound. It not only prevented him from moving, but significantly calmed him down, and he believes it was infrasound. And guys, we have 7 photos that goes with that, and I'm gonna show you guys the photos. And these photos, Randy drew these. We got a bunch of photos. I'll show you these when we get to the end. I don't want to lose our place in the story here. Here we go. Mike's giant parents show up. Then Randy hears the hay door open, which was close to his head, and he thought it was his dad who heard his screams and was coming to his aid. He can't turn his head to look and see who it was, but Mike the Bigfoot reacted and hopped off him, at which point Randy observed it was actually Mike's mother, a female Bigfoot, and she was angry and shocked to see her son playing with a human. The father was just outside the barn. Randy believed later that Mike the Bigfoot was using his infrasound on Randy to silence him from screaming because Mike did not want to attract the attention of his parents, almost as if Mike knew he was engaging in a forbidden behavior for Bigfoot. The female Bigfoot lifted herself into the hayloft, grabbed Randy, and smelled him with very fast sniffs the way a dog does. The female picked Randy up rather roughly, and in the process, the female Bigfoot picked Randy up by the waist and brought him to her nose. Then she wedged her finger between his skin and pants, and that broke Randy's pants, and they fell off. Then she kind of discarded him by dropping him, which lacerated Randy's thigh. It was at this point Randy saw the male Bigfoot watching from outside. Meanwhile, Randy's father is approaching with a rifle. The male Bigfoot could see Randy's father, but his dad couldn't see the Bigfoot. Randy's dad had first noticed two dark figures moving on all fours approaching the barn where Randy was playing, so naturally, his dad took off with protection. At the time, he thought they were bears. The female Bigfoot grabbed the juvenile Mike and leapt from the loft, but Mike was still holding Randy by the ankles, so Randy tumbled with them 10 feet down. It knocked the air out of him, and he screamed when he got up without clothes on. Randy later recalls this as an example of the difference of the physicality of these creatures and humans. For a 10-year-old boy, a 10-foot fall from an upper loft was extremely dangerous. But from what Randy knows now, that would have just been a normal rough and tumble activity for Bigfoot. Randy's dad appears and he's cursing, in shock, and can't believe what he's seeing. As the adult Bigfoot are retreating into the cornfield, Mike is still being held by his mother and is struggling furiously and escapes her grip and approaches Randy and his father on all fours. The adult Bigfoot don't pursue the juvenile, but they growl and scream. Mike the Bigfoot stands up a mere 10 feet from the humans and Randy. And Randy, still in a state of shock, yells for his dad to shoot it. His dad fires into the air with a 16-gauge shotgun because it was loaded for birds and could have ended Mike the Bigfoot, but certainly not the adults. Being a father himself, Randy's dad knew an attack on Mike would not have been appreciated by the massive adult creatures. At that point, all three Bigfoot went down on all fours and disappeared into the cornfield down to the creek, but Mike came out a moment later. The adult Bigfoot thought Mike was fleeing with them, but he wasn't. And there's more photographs, pictures that Randy drew, and I'll be sharing that with you in just a moment. Well, he's drawn a lot of pictures. Inside the barn, an arm reaches through the siding. With Mike approaching and parents nowhere to be seen, Randy and his dad fled into the barn because they still didn't want to shoot Mike and incur the wrath of the two giant parents. Inside the barn, there were gaps in the siding. Mike the Bigfoot reached in and grabbed Randy by the arm, trying to pull him through the small gap in which his dad hit Mike on the arm with the butt of his shotgun, in which Mike screamed. All was quiet for a few moments while Randy's dad asked him what happened to his clothes, and he reloaded shells into a shotgun. Then Mike grabbed the shotgun and they played tug-of-war with Randy's dad furiously trying to get the shotgun back, but to no avail. So he shot, and Mike let go. Immediately after this came the sounds of sirens. It's important to keep in mind, Mike probably thought him and Randy were still in play mode since they had been doing so earlier. Sirens blare as the police arrive. Sirens blazed because Randy's mother had called the police and didn't even know Randy's father had gone out to the barn, but from the window she saw the two large animals and couldn't see Randy or his father. She believed there was a bear attack occurring and called the police. A squad car and an ambulance arrived. Randy and his father came out of the barn, and the responders cut Mike the Bigfoot off as he tried to enter the barn on all fours through a gaping hole in the front. The policeman asked what had happened to Randy's clothes and if there were two bears, as dispatch had told them, at which point Randy's father informed them that this wasn't a bear, and the creatures had tore Randy's clothes off. More sirens could be heard coming in the distance. While Randy is being put into the ambulance and requiring a few stitches where the female Bigfoot had lacerated his thigh, Mike was crawling through the tall grass in a state of agitation and would simply not leave. The police officer could see the movement through the tall grass, but the grass was too tall to make him out clearly because Mike the Bigfoot was on all fours. Then, 20 feet from the ambulance, Mike stood up. At this point, the police realized this is an unusual creature. Randy is hearing all of this from inside the ambulance, and then he heard the police swear and fire their weapons. He wasn't sure if they were trying to hit Mike or just scare him off. Randy's father had been begging the police not to shoot it because he assumed the giant adults were still watching from the cornfield, proving that although Randy's dad was an experienced hunter, he knew the physicality of these creatures far outweighed the abilities of humans from seeing them outside the barn earlier. All was quiet while Randy received stitches inside the ambulance and his dad talked to the police. His distant gunfire heard from Randy's friend Tim's house. Distant gunfire could now be heard a mile away at Randy's friend Tim's house, and the policeman's radio begins to chatter. The police take off a mile down the road, and Randy and his dad soon follow. When Randy arrived at Tim's house, they found the police inside talking to Tim's dad. Tim's mother and siblings were packing up the car, preparing to leave forever, which they did. Randy found Tim in the cornfield, and he was crying. Tim told Randy that his father had shot the orangutan. Tim's family had been relaxing after dinner when they abruptly heard screams and banging on the side of the house, and his dad got his gun, and the family huddled in the middle of the room, away from the walls and windows. Mike the Bigfoot came in through the bathroom window and went straight for Tim, grabbing him and attempting to pull him back through the bathroom window. At the same time, Tim's family began to scream as they see Mike the Bigfoot's giant parents leering into the window. Tim begged for his dad not to shoot, but his dad understandably didn't listen and shot Mike in the living room, slamming Mike against the wall. Then Mike retreated the way he came in, through the bathroom window, leaving a trail of blood, broken glass, and footprints. Randy was then taken to the hospital. Randy thought at the time that Mike still didn't know what the guns do other than making noise because there had been so many gunshots and nothing had happened. At the time, even Tim's parents thought that Mike was an orangutan until they saw the giant adults watching through the window. A moment when imaginary friends of your kids becomes less than imaginary. I'm going through the pictures, trying to get to the rest of the story. Pictures will be at the end. Search, recovery, and autopsy. Later that night, after reports are filled out, a search by law enforcement and government officials fails to find Mike the Bigfoot's body. However, Mike's injuries proved fatal. The neighbors next to Tim, 2 houses down from Randy's, found Mike's body the next morning in a creek. Tim's dad called and asked, "Hey, do you want to come over and see your friend before they come and get him?" Randy and his dad came over, and Tim and his dad were already there with the property owner. Mike's body was lifeless and rigid. laid out on a picnic table by a pole barn where horses were kept. A few of the horses had died from feed poisoning. A shallow grave had already been dug. By the time Randy had arrived, an unscheduled autopsy was being performed by the property owner and Tim's dad, both experienced hunters who were accustomed to cutting. They wanted to figure out what this thing was. Once Randy realized what they were doing, he went and threw up in the cornfield. He wouldn't watch, but he heard the two men's discussion. They described the rear upper tusks that protrude from the mouth when the mouth opens, and strangely enough, two hearts, or at least what appeared to be another organ beside the heart that performed some function of blood pumping. Randy later describes this as a detached chamber. They also noticed that Mike's male member was inside of him, whatever that meant. The kid whose property this occurred on took photos of Mike, and the autopsy was about finished when Randy saw two massive dark figures peeking from behind a barn. He realized they were Mike's giant parents, and he ran for the house. The property owner screamed and ran too, wetting himself. Randy's dad, however, seeing these creatures before and not being so surprised, went for his rifle, at which point the creature ran away crashing and screaming. After that, Mike was buried in a trench used for farm animals. Randy thinks that it was these very graves that attracted the Bigfoot in the first place. A company that had sold horses and cow feed to that area in Michigan had made a terrible mistake and had sold feed contaminated with a chemical called PBB, a flame retardant. It had seeped into multiple products. A 1973 Michigan newspaper article had explained the long-term health effects on animals from PBB contamination in their feed. I'm looking for the rest of this. There's a lot of pictures, you guys, but I'm going to be showing that to you. Concluding events, the National Guard, and the Men in Black. Some days later, Randy was called to the principal's office at school. It seems the kid who had taken the autopsy photos had brought some of them to school, and Randy was in some of them. Randy said nothing to the principal as far as he knew, neither did the other boy. When Randy got home to his house after school, there were carpet cleaning vans there in the driveway, and his parents were not home. Entering his home, there were National Guard there and others that were not. Randy assumed the others were the infamous Men in Black, though he said they weren't pale and they're not paranormal. He believes they are a tribal entity organization with a few matters on the planet that they have jurisdiction over, and therefore are not part of the U.S. government, nor do they answer to them. It seems the National Guard were having an argument with these so-called Men in Black on how to proceed. It quickly escalated, then calmed down. The Men in Black seemed to have won the argument. After tying Randy to a chair and administering some kind of substance in his arm, the Men in Black had Randy lead them to where the incident of the autopsy took place. He never told them where Mike was buried, even though he looked over at the grave. The family that owned the property was furious at Randy for leading the authorities there. They eventually recovered Mike's body and confiscated it, along with all tools used in the autopsy. All local news articles and TV spots with mention of the events were removed. Through some technique used at the time, all the kids involved in this were made to forget to varying degrees of success. All the adults involved were threatened into silence. Randy's memories of this all came flooding back 20 years later in the mid-1990s. First, they were just streams and pieces of memory, but slowly all the memories came back and Randy began to sketch the events. Strangely, Randy had no artistic ability before he started the sketches, but it helped him to piece together the events. The details in the dozens of sketches he did is strange enough for someone with no artistic ability, or is it something else greater? At the least, it helped him cement his experience and better understand the nature of these creatures' existence, which to Randy are very real, like the clouds in the sky. Interestingly, Randy says in general, Bigfoots check you out first, and they don't go into panic mode but make noises or throw things to get you to leave. He says they are aware of their own mortality and would prefer to not have a confrontation in case you do have a gun. A wound is something they prefer not to have from an encounter with humans. He believes some of what are thought to be Dogman encounters and tracks in Michigan are actually mistaken identity and are in fact Sasquatch encounters and tracks. 4 interesting features from this encounter. Number 1, the Sasquatch on all fours, Randy says, is what they do because they're good at it and it keeps them low and out of sight when they need to be, not because they prefer to, and they do use their knuckles when down on all fours. Number 2, the rear upper protruding and retractable tusks. There are no known primates with this feature. Randy says if there are any front canines, they are not visible enough to notice, and their teeth rarely show because they have flexible lips. Number 3, 2 hearts, or a detached side organ chamber to assist the main heart in pumping blood. Though this anatomical feature is unknown in the mammal world, with the exception of manatees, which it's surmised they have to assist in living in the aquatic world. This feature is interesting. Is it needed to assist a Sasquatch in its rough and tumble lifestyle? And number 4, infrasound. Tigers, hippos, elephants, whales, octopus, pigeons, squid, cuttlefish, cod, guinea fowl, guinea pigs, and rhinos all have been documented using infrasound. Humans do too, but we can't produce it ourselves. Equipment is needed. The exception would be a few singers who hit notes they can't hear but can feel. It has a wide array of effects on humans that we can prove. Inner ear vertigo, imbalance, intolerable sensations, incapacitation, disorientation, nausea, vomiting, resonances in inner organs including the heart, and bowel spasms. And if Sasquatches are as smart as Randy indicates and they have this ability, then why wouldn't they use it? Randy relates how his encounter in the hayloft proves these creatures are interested in sounds. And that's it, you guys. So I am going to now, I'm going to show you all the photographs, and there is a lot of them. We're going to do this, then I am going to get out of here. I do have just a very creepy feeling. I don't want to be here. It's just an eerie feeling, that's all it is. Trying to get, there's a lot of these pictures. Okay. Get up here where you guys can see. A bunch of limbs in the way. Alright. This is when Randy and Mike were playing and Randy started beating his chest. If you listen to part 1, that's where he explains in part 1. And Randy drew these pictures himself. He's definitely got an artistic touch to him, for sure. And this is when Mike became aggressive and his eyes turned red, and he bares his upper rear tusks, which Randy had not seen before. Where you going, Petey? Petey? Where you going, buddy? And this is Randy's rendition of the upper rear tusks, the retractable tusk. I hope you guys can see this. I can't see the screen because of the glare on it. My skin is so dry I can't grab these pages. And this is with the tusk protruding when it opens its mouth. Stay over here, buddy. And this is the moment Randy realizes Mike is not an orangutan, but something else more dangerous, so he runs for his life. And this is when Mike grabs Randy's ankle and drags him off the loft. There are a lot of drawings. And this is when Mike pounces on Randy and paralyzes him using some type of infrasound. You guys got to remember, Randy, he was the one this happened to. And he drew these pictures from memory, from what happened to him, what he witnessed. To say that guy doesn't have an artistic ability, I would definitely have to argue that. Okay, this is the mother Bigfoot as she opens the hay door and is shocked to see her son playing with a human. And this is Randy's father with the mother and father Bigfoot by the barn. Look at the size difference. Holy cow. Hold on, buddy. We're going to go. He's getting antsy. We're going. And this is when the mama Bigfoot grabs Mike. And Mike was holding on to Randy and snatched him off the barn, that 10-foot drop. And this is when Randy comes sliding off the loft onto the ground because Mike holding on to him and Mama dragging Mike away. That retractable tusk thing is scary. What would that even be used for other than gripping something? This is the Mike and his mother and father. Randy's drawing from memory. It's wild. You guys, if you haven't heard that story yet, Randy's story, please go over and listen to the interview that Kyle did with him on A Cryptic Connection. This is them the Bigfoot running when Randy's dad was shooting into the air trying to scare him. I don't know which way is going to show up better. Can angle it down like that, put a little shadow on it. Maybe that's better. I don't know. And this is the drawing when the parents run into the cornfield, and then Mike comes back and approaches Randy and his folks. Rotate it a little bit. Yeah, I don't think you're going to be able to see it in the light. Trying to get to the rest of the pictures, you guys. Sorry. My skin is so dry. This one, Mike was running toward Randy and his dad, and they ran into the barn. And there's when Mike reaches in and grabs Randy by the arm, trying to pull him through the crack in the wall. Petey, stay over here, buddy. Petey, come on. And this is when Mike grabs the shotgun, and Randy's dad ended up pulling the trigger because he couldn't get it back from him. Peter, come here. I don't want Petey to run off. And this is when the police arrive, and the police were shooting in the air. That's when Mike shows up with the police and the EMS vehicle there. Dog flies are showing up again. And this is when Mike breaks into the bathroom window at his buddy Tim's house. This is interesting. All right, this is Randy's dad and Tim's father doing the autopsy on Mike, the Bigfoot, and with Tim taking pictures with a camera. Bizarre. And here's the male Sasquatch retractable tusks and how the tusks work with the jaw opening. Jaw opens, the teeth come down, closes, they go back inside. That's bizarre. Petey's getting a little antsy. All right, this is when the adults interrupt the autopsy. And everybody panics except for Randy's dad. The real reason Randy thinks the Bigfoot were on his farm in the first place was to feed on the carcasses of the buried dead farm animals, the victims of the chemically contaminated food. That's pretty nasty. Hold on, buddy, we're fixing to go. Hear that bird? And we're getting near the end, you guys. Just a few more and then we're headed out of here. Later, one day after school, this is when the carpet cleaning trucks were in the driveway. And he was interrogated and given truth serum. I don't know if that microphone's picking up that crow. Squawk of the raven. Entering his house, he was in the middle of a standoff between the National Guard and what seemed like men in black, while Randy was tied to a chair. And this is his... Now that dude is an artist. This is when they give him the truth serum and then they did something to him where they couldn't remember. All right, you guys, that is it. I'm going to put these away. And in fact, I'm going to do that right now. It's gotten very strange. It just feels very strange over here right now. The crow's ringing out. This dad burnt fly. Sorry, Petey, I wasn't trying to scare you, buddy. All right, I'm gonna put the mic up, put my stuff in the backpack, and we are going to head back. I'm going to the truck. It's got a really strange feeling over here right now. I don't know what it is, but things definitely feel weird. Very, very weird. All right, you guys, give me just a minute. Let me get my stuff put back in the backpack, and we are gonna get out of here.